let's talk about loops. So in the last week we talked about while loops. This week we're going to talk about for loops. And you might have seen for loops in somewhere else in the class, maybe an assignment or activity. But what's the difference? Well, while loops require a condition. So we say while some condition. And this is useful for, let's say, a video game where you are waiting for the user to click their mouse. So until they've clicked their mouse, we're going to print to the screen, please click your mouse, or print something else to the screen, or display something. So while we're waiting for something, like while loop is great. It's great for other things, but a for loop is good for when you know how many times you want to iterate through. Or maybe you have a string or a list which you want to iterate through. And I see the for loop more often and use it more often, but that could just be the area that I'm in. So how do we make a for loop, and how does it compare to a while loop? So let's try to print all of the characters in a string, for example. So let's say a equals my string. Okay, so it's a string, and we called it my string. Let's take the underscore out. My string. Let's use a while loop. We'll start with I equals 0 while I is less than the length of our string. Our string is called a. We're going to print AI. What is AI? So I is the index of the string, and a is the name of our string. So we're saying we're going to print the ith element of our string starting at 0. So we'll print the m, index 0, we'll then print the y, we'll then print the space, and so on. We're going to then need to increment I. So I equals I plus 1. So let's print this. So, like we said, we're printing each character of the string one at a time. We're incrementing I, and we're entering the loop again and printing again for I equals 1, and then 2 and 3 and so on. So we can do the same thing with a for loop. It's a bit different. We're saying here for I in range. That's one standard way of writing a for loop. We're basically saying start I at 0 by default and go all the way till the length of the string, however long it is. So, and what is the length of the string? Let's just print it at the bottom here. I guess it's 9. 9 is the length of this string. So we're saying for I from 0 to 9, print print the element at index I. So we're starting at 0, then we go to the loop again, we print at index 1, and then index 2, and so on. So we'll comment out this while loop, and we'll run this, and you'll see it does the same thing, so that's good. But the difference here is that we just have less code to write with the for loop than we do with the while loop. Less to keep track of and less code to write, which is a very small thing when you're writing this, but you'll see when you're writing larger programs that anything that's more efficient is going to be a lot when you have a lot of different for loops and while loops, or a lot of elements of your program. You're going to appreciate any time you can save or any space you can save. So that's just another way to do a loop. We have a while loop and now we have a for loop. Another thing, before I finish here, let's actually talk about this for char in A. So this is another way to write a for loop. We can say for, we don't have to say char, we could say for character or any other thing you want. We could say for B in A, print B. And this is even more efficient for something like a string. What we're saying is for each element in A, each element being a letter or a character, we want to print that element. So again, we're doing the same thing. But in this case, we had less to type even than up here. So lots to choose from, and lots of different ways to loop. Let's talk a bit about mutability. What does this word mean? It just means it's sort of like changeability. So if something is mutable, we say that we can change that thing. Let's try to change our string here. Let's say A3 equals X, for example. Okay, can we do that? We get an error. So it's a string object does not support item assignment. Strings are not mutable in Python. They're immutable. So we can't change this string directly. The way around it is we have to use concatenation to sort of cut out parts and join parts of the string. What do I mean by this? We could say new string, new A, equals A from 0 to 2 plus A, or plus our X, what we want to insert, plus A from 3 onwards. Okay, so this will go from 0 to 2, so 0, 1, it'll stop at the 2, so this string right here, it'll replace that with an X, and then from 3 onward, it'll print that, or it'll contain that, and then we can print new A. So again, we'll see this X is going to be inserted where the space is. Oops. So should have commented this out. This is where we are trying to change the string. We can't do that. We have to use this method. Okay, so we've taken that space. We have inserted character X into that space. So the last part of this video, we will talk about lists, and we'll just briefly touch on these. These are going to be very important in the course and in Python in general. You're going to see these a lot. So what are these? These are ordered and they're changeable, and what they are is they're a collection of values or elements. So just like in a string we have different elements, in a list we have different elements. So to declare a list, we could say my list, we can name it whatever we want. My list equals, this is just saying we have an empty list, but we could fill it with different things. A1, we could fill it with another list containing some characters. We can do a lot with lists. And how is this different than a string? Well, string is similar, but instead of being able to use numbers, integers, and other lists, we can only really use these characters. So a string is like that, and a list has more flexibility, maybe. So here's a list. Let's simplify it just for the sake of an example. Let's say 1, 2, 3, 4 is our list. Let's get rid of all of this. We can add to the list. So how do we do this? We say mylist.append, and we can add whatever we want. We could add a string, And what would this do? Let's print my list. And the list now has 1, 2, 3, 4, and cat. We could add the number 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's a way to add, and notice that we're adding to the end of the list on the right side. So that's what append is doing. We can also, just like in strings, we can print out certain elements of the string by index. So we can print my list at index 0. What do you think would be at index 0? Well, we start with index 0, then 1, 2, 3. We added a number, so that would be at index 4. What's going to be at index 0? It's the 1. So when we print, or when we run our program, when we print my list at index 0, the element is 1. Let's see what's at index 4. That's the 5 that we added here. So you'll definitely see more of lists, and we will talk more about these. But that's going to be it for this video. For the week, make sure you take a look at assignment 2. That's going to be due at the end of the month. And that's going to be it. So have a great week, and take care.